I'm waiting on the power of pleasure to load, girl, because that last post you wrote,
It says the. Are we live? Hey y'all, let's find out.
so we live.
Let's find
So
out
we live.
stuff. See, but I don't know why I insist on doing stuff through during Mercury retrogrades, girl. Cause Lord have mercy. Hey fam, hey fam, hey fam. I am excited that you are with us for part 2. Put your twos in the air. I got feedback that y'all was enjoying part 1 because we was spilling some tea. So I just want y'all to see my co-host for this live stream, the Soul Snatcher. Yes, live stream. That's my new name for Tresa Simmons, baby. She is the Soul Snatcher.
Oh, girl.
Tresa Simmons is,
Was an experience.
yeah, no, for real though. It's an honor.
Yeah,
It's a good title.
it is.
Because what
Thank
I
you.
know about you and what I know about you is that you put the soul back. You know what I mean? You may
Yeah,
snatch, you'll always put it back.
but it's going back for
So,
sure.
Tresa Simmons is the visionary and pioneer of an incredible movement, sensually empowered woman. And this movement provides coaching, community, and events that educate women about how to reclaim their innocence, how to get back in their bodies, and how
Mhm.
to heal through adult play and pleasure. I'm proud of your movement and the work that you are doing. And so thank
Thank
you
you.
again for being a part of this series and creating some exposure to the necessary work that you're doing. Y'all know who I am because I'm always yapping on my page and the internet. But for those who, I am Reverend High Priestess Thema Aziz Serwa. I am the visionary and pioneer of the global company, the Womb Sauna, where we teach women all over the world how to heal everything. We have services, products. We have a university where students from all over the world train and take on demand holistic education classes and programs. And I've been a full time entrepreneur for 12 years, and I've seen a lot of women come
Mhm.
for Yanni's team and recognize that they aren't residing in their bodies and they don't have enough joy. And so I am boldly in this season having the conversation out loud with the marketplace about sex.
Yeah.
So, why is this important? Well, let's define sexual health. We've heard the terms like mental health. We've heard about physical health, right? We've heard about cardiovascular health. What would make you think that your sexual health is not just as important as any other category of health? Why is it taboo or treated as taboo when it's also a part of your anatomy? Right. So I wanted to just have the mature conversation about the health benefits of being sexually satisfied and sexually active
Mm.
because there are, it's not like we're not out here naked on book covers, on lingerie, and just doing this just because we want your attention, even though attention does generate revenue in business. But that's a different conversation. That's the AAA code, right? That's the business masterclass marketing strategies. But no, we're having this conversation out loud with you all because there are actual health benefits from published medical studies that show people who are sexually active and sexually satisfied are experiencing different health outcomes physically, emotionally, and psychologically. And so, Tressa, do you want to chime in and share some of your knowledge around that and how you even found out that there was some real health benefits to being sexually active and satisfied?
So I'll start off the real health benefits. How did I find out? Everything begins with us. So I found out starting with myself. I was a lot happier. And the happiness has to reside somewhere, and the joy. And so in order for it to do that, I had to get back into my body. And so I had to reconnect with myself in ways that I had not done before. And also, when I think about, there was something specific, and I'm trying to bring up in my mind what you just said, because one of the things about what we do is you have to be, you have to have a love for yourself.
Mm.
You have to be, because it's a deep love to be willing to be autonomous, to say this is what I desire and
Yep.
give it to yourself,
Yep.
or this is my sovereignty, nobody can take it away, and I don't have to answer to you what I like and don't like. And so it seems like it's about sex, and it is, but at the same time there's a level or foundation that's created up under that, when it's done right, that it elevates us to the place that we can experience great sexual health, that
Mm-hmm.
we can experience sacred
Mm-hmm.
sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
well, we can own what we love and what we don't, what pleasures us,
Yeah.
what brings us joy, um in all ways. 'Cause that's the important thing to understand. I wrote a post today that whether you're 20 all the way to, I said 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, like me, 70 or up, um, having an orgasmic lifestyle is really, I kind of equate it to sex too, in a way. It's like you really giving yourself what honors you, and you're living such a life that's so blissful that, hey, that's where we want to stay. It started with me. I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, no, I think that's great because I do teach my clients that one of the best diagnostic tools is your own body. Put that in the comment section. My best diagnostic tool is my own body. My mother told me years ago,
yeah.
she said, daughter, you're going to the doctor and they're going to practice medicine based upon your own knowledge of what you articulate as the issue to them. They ask you, why are you here? And you begin to tell them what you are recognizing in your own body. And they go through their medical books and medical expertise and pull out their formulas for what they think will help. It does all begin and end with you. Your best diagnostic tool is your own body for every category of health. People who deal with high blood pressure notice that they don't have as much energy, they don't have as much capacity to breathe as deeply, and it's circulatory issues. People with diabetes start recognizing changes in their skin. They start recognizing different food. Like, your body keeps score.
Oh, it does.
Your body keeps score. So for me, I began to notice, like you, Tresa, like when I became more free and more principled in my sexuality and began to treat it as part of my spiritual practice, my skin started glowing, girl. I started getting all kind of compliments, like, oh, that skin is glowy and dewy. And I was like, oh yeah. My sleep improved. I was sleeping more deeply, and I was starting to not only dream, but remember my dreams. I was starting to dream in vivid color.
Oh, yeah.
I also noticed weight loss. I remember when I released over 40 pounds in less than a year, people were like, what are you doing? I was like, how do I answer this? I've been doing this one and that. Yeah, I was like, do you want this with details? Let me know. Because I was filling my body up with so much joy, I was just more relaxed. I wasn't as moody. And when I was getting pelvic floor therapy, my pelvic floor therapist said my pelvis was healthier and better aligned when I was more sexually active. My hormones were more balanced. I noticed an impact on my cycle, and that I was having easier, healthier, more vibrant menses.
Mhm.
Um, and so, and y'all may laugh when I say this, but I remember when people would position celibacy as an act of being more spiritual And I was like, I need to lay down with some priests to keep my soul. It's like, because when I go somewhere, I get angry, I get moody, my skin get dry. Yeah, like, and so those were just some of the things I personally experienced. I had such a distinct outcome in my health that I wanted to research it. And I found, like I was mentioning today in our live, that women who have a minimum of 7 climaxes per week, whether that is with a partner or on their own, have lower incidence of dementia as they're aging. They have easier transitions into menopause, lower incidence of cardiovascular disease, lower incidence of diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. I mean, almost every major category of health that is a concern for women who are aging, because we are going to age. We're going to all, as long as we're here, we're going to get another year, right? Pleasure has some medicine for it. Come on, God, won't you do it?
Yes, because that is my thought. That is my theme. Pleasure is medicine.
The
And Kim, it is
power
not the
of
kind of
pleasure.
medicine that it's
Go ahead.
not the kind of medicine either that's going to cause them to have to take another medicine and another medicine to fix that medicine. This the kind of medicine that just keep giving and giving and giving. And when you're happy, like when you're happy, that means you're not as stressed. And when you get stressed, you got to remember, I got something I can tap back in and bring me happiness.
And like 30
Like,
or less.
and girl, you know it. Like, one of the things that I gave the women the first year was vibrators. Like, here, take these home because they work. You
Yeah,
know,
no,
and I just,
and
huh?
some people think, and like you said yesterday, I want to re-highlight your point from yesterday's live. This is not for the pleasure of men. So if you're coming out of that context, you might have some resistance, like as if your sexual health is only supposed to be experienced with another person. No. The same way you got to get enough cups of water, the same way you got to get in the sun to get some natural vitamin D, I encourage you to go get some vitamin D.
I like that. I
You
like that.
vitamin.
Yes.
I encourage you to really reframe how you view yourself
Mhm.
and treat it as part of your self-care. I have literally said to some of my lovers, like, you are part of my self-care plan. And I just want to be clear about that. There's a certain rhythm that I would like to establish because I identified the health benefits of it and was able to trace it in my body. And so when you begin to reset your value system and you begin to see your sexuality as something that is sacred, that is part of God's will for your life, then you become more relaxed around the responsibilities of sexual hygiene. So I like to have this conversation with my clients about, okay, how do you inquire and have the conversation about sexual health? And me being who I am, so my GYN, he's a Jamaican man.
Mhm.
And for years,
Okay.
I used to prefer women. But he was one of the best in my area that my insurance covered. And so I remember the day I walked into my routine annual appointment with my GYN.
Mhm, 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 mhm.
He was checking me out. Everything was cool. And I said, hey, I got a question for you. He said, yes. I said, I'm very active sexually. And I want your advice as my doctor on how to have that conversation with these men. He got real serious. He went into Baba energy. You understand? He was like, all right, sit down. Let's talk about this. He said, at this stage in healthcare, everybody can pull up their labs on their medical app that their doctor sets up for the log. He said, so you sit these brothers. He said, I don't care if the check hasn't come to the table. He said, you sit these brothers down and you tell them, hey, I need to see it before we go any further. I need to see your lab work. And I said, okay. And I took notes. I listened to the different prompts and scripts that he gave me on how to have this conversation. And I remember when that 6'4" chocolate guy took me out to this downtown Mexican restaurant, and the energy was right. And he kept knocking my knees under the table because we both were tall. And when he would do it, he would take his hands, rub the knees, and say, "Oh, I apologize," and then bring his hands back up. So by the time he got to the third one, I said, "Let me give him a disclaimer because he really don't know me that well." I said, "Listen, you got one more time to rub my knees like that before we're going to have to leave this restaurant." And he looked at me with a straight face, no chaser, and said, "Just let me know when you're ready." Okay, checkmate. Well, there's something I need to see. Can you pull up your record? And he pulled out his phone and showed me his health record, the last test, the results, and everything right there on site. Don't assume that having these types of conversations are inconvenient or immature. It is important that you screen the health of potential partners that you want to have participate in your joy. So have the adult conversations and vet. Don't just take the word. One of our sisters in Let the Womb Be Heard have recently put a post on Facebook saying, "Hey, sisters, people are creating false my chart just so they can get." And I was like, they going that far, but it would make sense because the yoni is, powerful. So some men,
Or they have something to hide, Thema. Or
some
they have something to hide.
Well, they got something to hide. So you do need to think about, I share all of this because I want you to be thinking about your plan. You shouldn't approach this new way of life without a clear vision. Where there is a lack of vision, there is perishing. You need to have a clear vision for how you intend to communicate, engage, get information, right? Some of my clients discovered they had latex allergies, and so they couldn't use latex. Okay, so we had to have conversations about alternative options for protecting your body when you are sexually active. And don't think this is for single women. There are married women that I serve who are with unhealthy husbands who have to come and ask me, how do I stop getting these chronic yeast infections every time I lay with my husband? He turned diabetic and now he's having yeast problems in his body and depositing yeast in my own. Yeah, this is like real life, grown people knowledge and conversation I'm trying to have with you so that you can be wise and educated. And so, so if you're dealing with certain things, like I was sharing in my Power of Pleasure Masterclass, which is why y'all need to come into that process. If this is resonating with you, it will change your life. But I was telling one of my students, I was like, there was a lover in the past that I dealt with. And from the first time he came over, I could tell his chakras weren't balanced. So we had to do some Reiki work before you could enter my body. There are men who are too emotionally dysregulated. There are men who don't know God well enough. I have standards. My freedom doesn't cost me integrity and principles. It actually gave me the capacity to implement them consistently. Right?
Yeah.
So I teach my students, I teach we the type of girls who are putting clay masks on our lovers and giving them teas and like, you can ready to come into this by this temple. And for a woman's body, the first response is an immune system response. Your body begins to see what that lover has deposited in you. So choose wisely and do your due diligence. And if you need support on creating that plan, that's what Tresa and I are here for. This is what our services, products, and offerings are here for, because we understand that some of our mamas and aunties and didn't really sit us down and explain that to us. If you came from teachings that were rooted in fear and anxiety, then you just simply don't know what you don't know until something happens that alters your body and now you're concerned. So if you notice that every time I lay with such and such, my womb is breaking out, my smell is changing, my fluids are changing. Okay, she's trying to tell you that ain't my choice, boo. I know.
That's your choice.
That's your choice. It ain't
That's
mine.
your choice.
And I know.
And Tim, I just want to
go ahead. Come in here. Mm-hmm.
No, I just want to interject really quick that what you said is so important, because I live in Arizona and there's a lot of elderly people. They like to come and they like to move here in places like this in Florida, and they have some of the highest
Yes.
sexually transmitted diseases
Yes.
on record. I'm not saying necessarily Arizona. I'm saying because older people think can't get pregnant, I can't this, I can't that. But somebody's out there doing something because there's a lot of that type of stuff going on in that community, whereas they're not protecting themselves.
Yeah,
They're not. And so this is important what you said,
it is.
because I'm especially trying to, like, I want all women, but you and I are like, I'm in my 60s, you in your 40s, and a lot of the women that I tend to work with often have that early 40s and up, somewhere in there between there. And I just want women at all ages to know, when you start talking about sacred sexuality, it's a beautiful thing. I don't care what age you are.
Yeah.
Um, but having said that, we still need to understand we need to cover ourselves. We need to protect ourselves.
Yeah, you need to have a clear vision for how you do what you do. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I remember when my mother told me when she was in my care about a conversation her doctor had with her saying, hey, don't think just because you're in your 60s that you don't have to have a vision, because you do. Because as of what you said, it's not just in Arizona. Nationwide, there's been a lot of studies coming out showing that sexually transmitted diseases are on the rise in ages 50 and up. Well, it's two reasons for that. One, you already articulated, people are more relaxed. They're thinking, oh, I ain't, having no children. I don't went through menopause, boop, boop, boop. The other reason is you're dealing with people who have had more sex than any other demographic, like they've been on earth longer. So these men done had a lot of cat and these women done had a lot of dog. You understand? So
Yeah,
of
yes.
course, they've exchanged more energy, more of their body, more bodily fluids. And if they were not wise and were not intentional about how they were doing that, they might have picked something up and never really paid attention to any of the signs, or maybe they didn't have any symptoms and maybe they don't even know what's in their body. But that's why you should find out what's in people's bodies before you start sharing bodies. It's just a, it's just a
Yeah.
it's just a good self-care practice. Vet, use your intuition, use your instincts. Louise Hay says in her book, Heal Yourself from A to Z, that the psychological condition that vibrates with sexually transmitted diseases is guilt, holding guilt and shame
Mm.
about sexuality. So in my work, I'm just talking about my work with women, the thousands of women that I've serviced, I find that the ones with the most anxiety and fear that practice their sexuality from a disempowered position are the ones that come to me in their health profile. They done picked up something. And I'm
Because
fascinated.
they draw what they're afraid of.
Yeah, because everything is energy.
Yes.
So that's why for me, my sexuality and my sensuality needed to become a spiritual practice, needed to not be casual, needed to be very intentional and empowering, because I am not interested in being driven by fear in any area of my life. And I'm not interested in training my body to be in a chronic state of fear and anxiety just because that's what people have taught me to do. So yeah, I help women, and I have through the womb sauna, recover and reverse some of these conditions through holistic medicine and resources and tools, etc. And this thing helps with those types of things. But I want to make sure that the people who follow me and are interested in this conversation have a context and some ideas on how you can start creating a clear vision on how you're going to reclaim your freedom and your innocence about your sexuality and be a little wild and free, but still be wise. You can be
Yes,
at
wisdom.
the same time. You can be both at the same time. And you should find the happy medium so that you don't feel like you're sacrificing pleasure just to be safe and responsible with your body. Right. So, and
And
there's,
Thema,
mhm,
I'm sorry, can I throw something in there too?
of
And
course.
although we're talking about sexually transmitted diseases and things like that, I also want women to take heed though, where it may not be that physical thing of sexually transmitted diseases, but if you are letting men inside of you who, um, let's say, abusive and all of these other things, or if you're going against your own truth, if you're betraying yourself because you know this person may not be a match or something, you're still doing. And you talked about the body keeping the score. All of that's still a part of this. It's not
Mhm.
this. That was a great topic you brought up because we do need to know. But even in adding to that, let me say it that way. Um, we have to trust ourselves because we're letting all of this negative energy, things that we know
Mhm.
that's not for us, and we're just trying to, because we're scared to let go. We know this relationship been over a long time ago, but we just keep staying there and just keep, letting somebody put deposit into us. And those type of things, they all matter because the body does keep the score, whether it's emotionally, mentally,
Mhm.
spiritually.
Yep.
It keeps it keeps the score. And so those are things that we need to take, heed in. And I think too, I just when you talked about celibacy, I kind of thought about I don't know how to really say this, so you can help me here. They let women know, even though we've given them things that we want them to be mindful for, don't let it scare you off from really stepping in the water. I think some of these women, when you start talking about sacredness and these type of things, because of the way they were taught, I was one of them at one point.
Mhm.
It's hard to shake loose that I can't. This makes me not to make me a loose woman, and it's a bad thing if I do it. They still carrying all the guilt and the shame, and then they go to the grave, never living a fulfilled life. And I'm not just talking about sexually, because the way you do one thing, you do all things. And if you can't be free sexually, you're probably not free in other areas. And if you're not letting yourself be free in other areas, you're probably holding yourself back sexually. I'm just saying that all of it kind of ties in, and really the whole thing is about freedom. It is
Yeah,
about just
I'm
being
glad you bring that
authentically
up
free.
because that's really, really good, Tresa. Thank you for highlighting that because it can be scary, but you won't ever really find what activates your courage until you face your fears. And the reality is, most women that I work with have never had a season in their life where they truly explored their sexuality. Either they were taught to be the good girl, the pendulum swang
Yes,
way to the other end, and they became the nasty, dysregulated girl. But the natural sexual development process wasn't afforded to most people. Now that's starting to change culturally because people are now having these conversations out loud. But most of the women that I've served have sexual trauma. And once the trauma comes into the body, it naturally interrupts nature's designed process for a person's sexual development. And so now they
yes,
have to not only develop, but then they got to clear the trauma back out of their body. And so
yes.
I this is why I provide the classes, the programs, the support that I do because ultra independence is a trauma response. And you can spend your entire life judging yourself and categorizing yourself as being flawed in some way for not having more joy and satisfaction. And the reality is, you just don't know what you don't know. That's all. And
So
so
come on to so we can help you out.
It's okay to be ignorant. I'm strategically ignorant because I am such a great studier. Sometimes I gotta turn off my brain and say, just be dumb about something, Taylor. Like, just don't go study it, don't go read, because I need that balance. And I need more fun and play and pleasure, or I'm gonna always be in somebody's book reading and decoding, and because that's my nature, and I actually enjoy that too, right? But I have to balance these things.
Hmm, hmm.
If you're listening and you can feel the resistance intellectually, emotionally, physically, it's natural to be afraid, but are you going to live according to your fear? Because when you are a principled woman, it doesn't matter what area of your life we're talking about. It doesn't matter what environment you're in. your principles show up and set the tone. I don't walk into rooms and the rooms are to me. I walk into rooms and shift the vibration in the room. That's who I am. So I just feel like women need to own their lives, own your body. Your principles govern everything about your life. So it's the same thing with your sexuality. It's not that God is omnipresent and everywhere but your bed and your body. That doesn't make sense. That's not what omnipresent means. It means God is everywhere all the time. And thank God for my mother, because my mother was the first one to mention that to me. She said, with my biological father, when they first got married, she said, your father had that beautiful body, but he didn't initially know what to do with it. She said, but I remember when he got on his knees and laid hands over my yoni and began to pray. She said, and I jumped up like, what is this man doing? And she said, he prayed and asked God to help him take care of his wife. She said, and hey, she said, that's what's got.
After that.
Okay. So,
isn't that vulnerability though?
Yeah, but
isn't that some amazing
his principles though? Like that was my father was praying and decreeing who I would be every day while I was in my mother's womb. He was a priest. You understand? And then my mother was born on October 31st with a streak of gray hair and a veil of skin over her face. It's inevitable that Thema was coming, you know, between the two of them and the way they were set up. So when we talk about sexual health, there is such a thing as spiritual infections. And one of the mediums that is often used to transfer negative energy is the body. When I was a Christian minister in church environments, I'm still a minister, but I'm not, you know, in the pews like I used to be. But when I would be in the church environments, there were times that after I was done preaching and, you know, people greeting you and stuff, somebody would bump me and transfer something on me and I had to go send it back to hell. You know, like these things happen. So just imagine when you let an abusive, toxic somebody lay in the holy cauldron that is your womb space.
And just imagine, Thema, when you let that man like your dad, though, I'm jumping over here, like that man like your dad. Late, you know, when a man comes to you that vulnerable and saying, hey, like, what is it you need? How can I serve you? How can I pleasure you?
Well, no, but he had a conversation with my mother.
I know he didn't, but you know, a lot of men may not be that far advanced, but
that's another
they may not.
That's another
right. That is another level.
There are men who are enough to say to the woman, how can I take care of you?
That's what I'm saying.
My daddy said to God, mother, give me what I need to take care of her. She didn't even have to articulate it. That is
so beautiful.
That's priest, and they exist, but you won't find them until you become what you're looking for, and that's the code.
That's good. That is good.
I am what I seek. I am what I seek. I'm the woman in bed that's like Holy Spirit activate. For real.
Yeah.
So of course I get men who kiss my feet and do the same, right? Because I am what I seek. And it's all vibrational. So when it comes to the spiritual piece of it, what's missing in our culture are the rites of passages that train the women on their power sexually.
Yes.
So most people, the most information they get is don't do it until you're ready. Don't bring no babies home. But there used to be in the old world, in the ancient,
come on through now. Talk about us.
Real training around what it means to be a woman and to have this womb, to have sensual and sexual power that nature has given you, to be the vessel that men need to pass their DNA and their legacy. Like that's a real thing. That's real power, right? And a lot of women don't know how to use it unless, you know, their mothers taught them or somebody taught them or they've gone through processes like what we offer. So I bring that up to say when we're talking about spiritual infections and the transfer of unwanted energy, in the old world, women were trained on how to transmute that energy because nature designed us to be the receivers. So I remember in my first marriage when my ex-husband would come home angry from work and what white supremacy and things were playing out in his work environment and stuff. And he would want to lay on me and try to soothe himself through intimacy with me. And then I was having a great day and all of a sudden I'm mad and depressed. But I didn't know what I know now, right? That was a transfer of energy. By the time I got to my second marriage with my now ex-husband, you know, that traditional marriage template I outgrew very quickly, but that's a different life. But when I got to my second marriage, by that time, I was able to measure my power more accurately. So there would be times when that ex-husband would come in and I would be like, well, today was rough for me too. I ain't got nothing for him. We're going to have to go to the altar and pray. And I'm going to have to make a pot of my day rough too. We might be warring in bed if we try. But then there was days that my capacity was great and I was moving like God in my house. And I could see that he was wrestling with his self-esteem. He was wrestling with feeling confident that he could accomplish some of the goals he set. And I laid on him and took all of that energy and transmuted it and gave it back to God and took it off of my husband. I know the duties of a wife. I'm an excellent one. And it's multi-layered. And part of my expression goes from just my, you know, domestic duties like cooking, cleaning, those things, raising the children, but also I'm an excellent nurturer. That's part of my ministry as a wife, to be able to look at my husband and transmute the energy and preserve the vibration of joy in the house through what we do with our bodies. And by the time I'm done with a man, he's happy. He's skipping. He feels like he can go conquer the world. And that's what I need him to go do and bring the spoils back to mama, right? So like this is stuff that some of our mothers has never sat down and really taught us. And even if we had some that had clues about it, they didn't teach us process. They didn't put us in the rites of passage and show us what to do with the energy, because sexuality is energy, just like anything else, right? Just like in the Bible, when Esther prepared for the king so she could get what she needed for her nation. That's the kind of lover I am. You heal one woman, you can heal a nation, right? So we really have to, this is what I mean about having a clear vision for your sexual health. You got to make sure your gift of discernment is turned on before you put somebody into your body. We ladies do not move in desperation. We are not desperate. We do not chase, we attract. We are magnetic.
Yes.
Pheromones, everything. We are magnetic. We summon. In the power pleasure class, my students aren't allowed to say, I'm trying to manifest a love. No, but we summon. We summon our lovers. Because Holy Spirit already knows what frequency we need. Right? And most people aren't even approaching it that way. They're just like, oh, I see attraction. And I teach women, well, attraction is one thing, connection is another, but compatibility is the goal. Like, we have a bunch of people we attracted to, nor are we just trying to have a bunch of people we're connected to. I've been connected to men for 3 minutes on the elevator. That don't mean they need to spend the rest of their life with me. You know, I'll love you right there for 3 minutes and leave you right there. I'm wise enough to leave it right there on the elevator, right? So I need men to start thinking about, grab pen and paper and start journaling and write the vision, make it plain. So you can run and not faint, so you can be free and be satisfied in the domain of sensuality and sexuality and not faint and pass out because your fear or your lack of vision or your lack of planning and preparation and wisdom puts you in a situation that you wish you were never in. But if you get outside of it, you can be in situations that you know and wish will never end, right? So
yes. This is a good thing. And I think, Thema, that know thyself. I think
Yeah,
a lot. I mean, I've heard so many beautiful things, but know thyself.
it's so
Like,
important.
it is important. And so I want to just kind of say, one of the things that women can do is get a journal. And I know it
Mhm.
may sound a little lopsided, but get a journal. And if you masturbate every day, say how you felt. Say what you felt like came out of that. Watch if you practice breathing exercises. For some, if you read erotica or porn or whatever it is, begin to journal about your experiences, because if you can't really say identify within yourself how you feel, and I'm not talking about from, like you said, the good girl and the bad girl. I'm not talking from those standpoints. I'm talking about being honest. I don't know why I feel like this. I don't know why I feel like I shouldn't, because, and just begin to search. Is it because somebody told you, or is something you don't really like, or is it something somebody really told you and you've never experimented to know that, damn, maybe I really do like this.
Mhm.
Maybe I would want this to be part of my foreplay, a part of my this, a part of my that. I just want, because I don't think, well, let me put it like this. When I see you, and sometimes I read your stuff, I be like, damn, wait a minute. Now, eh,
Everybody keep
I
asking
remember
me to write like a memoir book or something. I may or may not. I just sit and keep living it.
right. And so what I have found though is I remember many years ago, um, and I say many, but it probably hasn't really necessarily been that many years ago. I would see different women, and I always thought I wanted to be like those women. When I really realized there was things about those women that I was able to later understand connected with me, and
Mhm.
that I wanted to experience it myself, not just because it was there, but because I felt it here. I began to learn it was in here. And
Yeah.
so when I listen to you, and I feel like women that really begin to know themselves, it's part of their mental health, their sexual health. It really is a spiritual health. I feel like it's all in there, because a woman that knows herself is definitely becomes comfortable with her body, but also in her body. She's not
Yes.
in her head as much. She's not in her head as much. She's getting in her body. She's learning to trust the body, trust the intuition, trust her senses. All of those help bring about a bigger expression of who
Yeah.
she is. And then, because I keep saying water reaches its own level, she begins to draw the men that you're talking about that she has some compatibility with. Like sometimes we wonder, like, why these men in our life? And we haven't looked at ourselves, because they can't stay there if we're not, they're meeting us where we are. We think it's them, but
Or
really a lot of the time,
access. Or you're just giving them
huh?
access. I said you're just giving
Or you
people
giving them, yeah, or you
you
giving them access. But same, even then, when I think about, and this is not to make a woman feel bad, it's just hopefully giving a woman another way of looking at things. Because even then, why would I give them access? So there's another question for me. Why would I? If I
Mhm.
know this is not what I want, or was it that I thought I wanted and I realized, okay, so I learned something about myself. Let me let you go back out the door because I thought I liked this, but I realized I like this. Because nothing I say is to try
You
to make a
know
woman feel.
that's so good. Do you
Yeah,
know most women don't have that process? Like most women don't get that until their 40s.
girls, let's try
They
50,
spent,
maybe almost 60.
they spent their 20s and 30s
That was
wrestling
me.
with guilt, shame, and what everybody else thought they should be doing with their bodies. I mean, now this generation is a little
Yes.
like the Megs, the Stallion, Sexy Red generation, a little different. But before that, though, right? A lot of women never had a season to explore their desires without guilt and shame and trauma. And so
Which I
just
think is a lot of women in my age. What about that? About the 60s, 70s?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
even with the Megan Thee Stallions, if people don't understand that what she represents is of energy that we can live, they still oftentimes go out to perform
Mhm.
versus understanding this is not about performing. This
Mhm.
is about living in your body and experiencing, as you would say, our God, our heaven, our the bliss on earth.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it's like,
It's
you
really
know,
important.
what can I say?
I tell all women, when you are taking on a new lover, there should be some fasting, some praying, some preparation. There's no time that I am taking a man into my orbit and God is not involved. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And whatever your spiritual practice is, if it's praying and you hear from God audibly, or you get dreams, or whatever, however it works for you, what I'm saying is that should be part of your foreplay. I connect with the spirit of a man long before I connect with his body. There are men
Yes.
made love to I have not even met. And that's a whole other series. That's power of pleasure curriculum, right? Like, ooh. And they call me in the middle of the night, like, really, you just gonna wake me up like that? I'd be like, ooh, baby, I didn't even mean to do that. You were in my dreams too. We are multi-dimensional, multi-layered beings. And it's unfortunate that people miss out on the power of pleasure because of fear and miseducation. You cannot
Mm.
tell me that the God who made this body and gave me an organ with so many nerve endings solely for pleasure does not want me to use them. Because when I use that organ, the only name I can think of is God. So
Oh yes. Oh God.
So I'm just of a different belief, and that new belief has allowed me to be in a position to create some new information and education for people to consider. I ain't saying you gotta live like I live, because it takes big capacity and big energy to do what I do the way I do it. But I'm satisfied, and I remember the
And
years
that's
of
what's important.
I remember the years of my life being unfulfilled, but having all this love and all these options and all these offers and all this energy, but was not fulfilled and satisfied. I reside in the principle that I have no shortage of love or pleasure, and I never will, and I don't. But that's not something that was handed to me. That is something that I gave myself. And I had to look at my values, my beliefs, my perspective of my body and sexuality and sensuality. And I had to really make some clear adjustments. I had to change my mind about some of my truths. That was my personal.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it ushered in a better truth for me that my body, my mind, and my soul is satisfied with. Satisfied. And I no longer feel guilt or shame. You know, these kinds of changes may affect your relationship. Some people just could not understand my newfound freedom. And sometimes your freedom is offensive to people who are in love with their chains.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
That hit. Sometimes your freedom is going to be offensive to people who are fond of their chains. So
Or who bound? Yeah, ooh, that's true.
how
That's true.
dare you not be afraid of hell? How dare you not, feel like you and God aren't just like, they really get offended. Drop them off. Come hang with me and Tresa. We'll be
For
fine.
real, for real.
We will
Yeah,
pray.
right, Taylor, because it really, because and don't feel guilty. I guess that's the whole thing to keep coming out. Don't feel guilty because you used to be one of them. And they'll try to remind you, you used to be one of them. They'll either remind you, used to be one of them. My family be like, damn, they don't remind me I used to be, well, they don't really talk about I used to be one of them. But they used to be, dang, you look like you are today. And I laugh because I wasn't. I was
Isn't
boxed
that the
in.
goal of being human? Like, I would
It
not want
is.
in my 60s and people telling me I'm still the same as I was in my 20s. I'd be like, well, damn.
Yes, but I think that had like a radical transformation,
Mhm.
really. And so to the point that they like, what? Like little Miss You, who used to be like, that's wrong, that's bad, you shouldn't do that. I even think about my mom, who is 80 something now. She has dementia. And I'm realized I'm gonna live not only for me, but I'm gonna live for her. I remember my mom was probably about her 40s, and she had met somebody who was like maybe 20 years younger than. No, he wasn't. She was probably about 45, going to her 50s, because he was probably in his mid 20s. And I remember how me and my sisters acted a damn fool, like he's too young. And I look back, and she gave it up, something that brought her pleasure. It
Mm,
still brings tears to my eyes, because if I could undo that, I was one of them women that. So I'm gonna be the opposite now. Like I'm a pleasure revolutionist. I'm a pleasure activist, and it's all not about just sex, sex, sex. But sex is part of that. But the
yeah.
whole point is, if you live in your best life and it's bringing you joy and it's filled with pleasure, then you getting it all. And if I could do that again to transform my mother and give her back that time, and here she is, and then she just started going back to church stuff, and that's all she pretty much did. And she got married one more time to an asshole. She did leave him right away, probably
Okay.
within 2 weeks of getting married. But
Oh,
my
good.
point is, all of these things that our mothers could have had and we could have had. And so we might have been one of them, but don't let people guilt you because you used to be like that. Just understand that you have transformed your life because you want better. And when you learn better, hopefully you do better. And, and you just have to leave them where they are and let that be okay. But live your best life, because that's what
Yeah.
I aim to do.
As you're saying that, this is so good because you don't have to prove to anybody your relationship with God. They will know you by your fruit. And if your joy is offensive, the fruit of their spirit is misery. They will prefer that on some level, and it's probably subconscious, that you be suffering or that you conform to their truth in order to
Yes.
exchange love and positivity with you. I don't, in my spirituality, I actually have Christ, not the symbolism. So for me, there is no condemnation to those who are
Right.
actually with Christ. I don't have the symbolism. I don't have indoctrination. I know God for myself. And there have been times I've told people it felt like strangers walking up to me, asking me, you would never walk up, Tresa, to another woman who you know is married and ask her all the details about her relationship with her husband. But you got people crazy enough to walk up to a Thema, to me, and try to drill me about my relationship with God. I'm like, wait, who do you think do you know how important God is to me? Who do you
Right.
think you ought to come up in here and try to pick apart my experience because you are so miserable with
Right.
what you believe that you want to transfer some of that suffering energy over here? I'm sorry, there's nothing anybody can say that's going to keep me from keeping my legs over my head. I know that this body is
Okay.
fearfully and wonderfully made. And as long as I can do it, with God as
I'm
my
gonna
witness,
do it.
them legs
I'm
going to
gonna
kick
do it.
this. Okay. And
Yeah.
and for me, it's sacred, it's holy, it's joy, it is part of the divine plan. Or why would we even need sex to bond and be intimate and procreate? No, it's not evil. It is
Ex-
not all the other
it's
stuff.
not, Tamer. And
So I
especially
want
when you got a
you.
man who worships you, because that's a different level
Ooh, girl.
of interaction. That's a different level of interaction when a man really worships you. And when you have, when you talking, and it's like they don't want to do nothing but just look up under you and listen to you talk. Um, it's like they tell you, it feels like I've known you forever.
Mhm.
And I've gotten bolder. I have gotten bolder in my older age. Like sometimes I will vet through my friends and I may ask, do you know this person, whatever, because they've been kind of close to them or whatever. And if I want to get to know, I might call, I may ask, I may
Mhm.
say, hey, do you want to get together? Do you want to talk? Do you want to whatever? Um, yeah. I'm just thinking about the last experience
You
I
knew,
had. I
Tresa.
was
I saw it on your face. Okay, soul snatcher.
Chicago. Wait a minute. I was in Chicago.
Come back to
Um,
the line, please. You left us.
wait to Chicago, and hey, I just asked, do you want to meet up? Man, let me tell you,
But that's a
it's a
statement to
difference.
yourself that you're in a different space, because an older version of you would not have gone to get what you desired. This new
No,
version of you knows that desire
and
is the seat of your feminine power.
right, and so now, like, he's willing to fly in, like, hey, contact all these kind of things. It's like, so the things that I didn't really experience before, it's just a lot more open now, because yeah, I feel like I said, I am. I never you like to use the word on the other side of death and all that crazy stuff. Like, but I am over 50. So my whole point for saying this is that
You're well
I didn't get the
marinated.
kind of joy, huh?
I
I'm
said you're
well
well
marinated.
marinated.
Yes, for sure. And then what I was on the, I wrote in a book once about I'm on the other side of joy. And so for me, it's like this side over here, there was a lot of crying, there was a lot of tears, there was a lot of heartache. And on this side, I plan on living my best life for as long to the day I drop. To the day I drop, like living my best life, living in joy, and finding that, like, just keep moving in that direction. Because Tama, I mean, we were brought here to this universe more than just to suffer, more than just to raise kids. I think women forget they're more than mothers. They're more
Mhm,
than their roles that they work. They're
mhm.
more than so much. One of the things I keep reminding even my daughters, you are women first. All these other things, and we don't tell you ignore your jobs and your whatever, but you're a woman first. And what happens, usually we women forget they're women first, and they
Yeah,
try to do everything else, and then they're so depleted. They don't even know who they are, what they like, what they used to, like, no. Like, come on. And then the most important, I think, for me too, is this experience is we giving it to our daughters. And even
yeah,
if you don't have children, as women, you're letting other women or other little girls, when we live the way we live, when it's done in integrity and not self-betrayal, it don't
yeah,
come off as um it don't come off in a way that is disrespectful to that little girl and her age and what
mhm,
she's capable of knowing.
mhm,
And then it doesn't come off that way. And then as they grow, they begin to become like flowers that bloom and open, and they get to understand so many things. Because again, all of these things that we're talking about begin with us. Before you was able to experience that with that man, you had already start experiencing it with yourself.
yep,
Like, even that deep desire to have that capacity, that was a longing for you. And you
mhm,
answered that yes before you even the man came in. You had already said, yes, this is something I want to do for me. And
mhm.
I just want women to know that it's just, and all of this, how does it tie into mental health? Because when you live in your best life, when you live in authentically and enjoy and being de-stressed, everything functions better in your body.
Yeah, those happy
Like your
hormones
mental,
and the brain be lighting up with all that joy.
yes,
And
and
in the
like you
words
said, your
of
heart works
uh,
better.
Joe Dispenza, can you teach your body what to feel?
Yes, it is
Teach
time.
what to feel. I remember, I want to give this quick testimony and then I'm going to begin to transition this out. When I had my
Okay.
experience with cancer and that tumor was in my body, one of the things I don't think I've even shared publicly, this may be the first time that I do, interesting. Um, I had decided once I was aware of the cancer that I was going to release it in less than 30 days, and I did. That was the testimony. If y'all aren't aware of that, that's listening. And I remember when I became aware that that tumor was in my body and the cancer was in my rectum, so it was right behind my vagina. And I remember the surgeon saying when we go in to remove it, which by the time we got to that, it was gone. I had took care of the surgery in spirit. But he was, he had to do his job. So he's like, well, we might have to cut into your vagina. And I looked at surgeon in his eye. I got real serious. I said, let me tell you something. I am not done with this yet. So what we not gonna do is anything to it. So he was like, yes. You should have seen the look like yes. Tresa, you should have seen it.
Well,
But one of my lovers is a master Reiki practitioner. And I didn't want to tell him about the cancer experience while I was in it. I knew with that particular lover, I was going to reserve it once I got to the other side of it. But I did want to spend time with him before I moved on and the different things I did to heal it. So we had one of our times, we scheduled it. And when he got in my body, I told him nothing about the tumor, Tresa. He was stroking and he said, wait a minute, something's different, baby, in your body. Let me go ahead and take care of that and heal it. He didn't even know he had the tumor. And I was like, oh, look at the priest serving the need of this body. And he began to channel Reiki and prayer and all of that. And it was such a powerful climax and experience. And I told him afterwards how God used him as part of my healing process, and how after he was knocking that tumor around everything, by the time I got to my shaman and acupuncturist, my rectum pulsed for 48 hours. By the time I got to the surgeon, there was no tumor to find and operate on. I'm telling you, I'm not saying this stuff to y'all and having this conversation with you because I don't live it and I haven't already seen the power of God in this territory, in this domain. I have had my own miracles as a result of treating my sexuality sacred and allowing God to be present in the expression of it. And I wish that every woman could experience her body and the presence of God in it in these types of ways without fear and without shame and without guilt. And that is why I'm so passionate about it. That's why I offer the Power of Pleasure program. It's 6 weeks with me in that immersion. And that's why part 2 is coming. That's why you need to come to Arizona in October and be in person with the women who have vetted the knowledge and curated experiences that are safe and will empower you to get back in your body and fill it up with joy. For some of you, that's through the physical act of sex. And I do think every woman should be having a minimum of 7 climaxes a week to live long and prosper. But for some of you, your starting point may be just in changing your value system and spending more time in nature and all that. But we will hand walk you through it. And that's why we're taking the time out to have this conversation with you. So, Tresa, I think we still have, 5 spots left?
Yes, we do.
Can you give the sisters information on how they can register and connect with you to snag one of those spots that's left and be with us in person in October? For those of you who are interested in connecting with me before then and coming into the Power Pleasure program, just go to thewombsauna.com/programs. If you need to set up a 15-minute inquiry call with me or my program coordinator first, you can do that. We'll talk to you. My team answers our phones 24/7. Call us 888-576-9662. We will help you figure out how we can serve you best. Tresa, how can they get into this retreat?
Okay, so they can DM me, Tresa Simmons, on Facebook. They can call me at 623-296-3557, or they can reach me by email at Tresa@sensuallyempoweredwoman.com.
Awesome.
And payment plans are available.
If you need
I just want
it.
y'all to know.
Some of y'all,
if you need it.
Some of y'all don't, because y'all so
yes.
But if you need it, we do make our programs and offerings very accessible.
Thank you, Thema.
No, you're welcome. And so we got one more part to this conversation tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to wrap up the conversation with giving you some practical techniques you can do to amplify pleasure in your life. Y'all probably don't want to miss that. It's going to be yum, yum.
Yeah. Yum.
Empowering. Tag us in the comments with any questions. To our YouTube fam, thank you so much for tuning in. To our Facebook fam, thank you so much for tuning into the conversation. Like, subscribe, share. If there's another woman you know who needs the conversation that we've been having, go ahead and share it with them. And take notes. Come back and replay this as many times as you need to. and reflect on any triggers that triggered while listening to us, or any resistance, or any joy, excitement, anticipation, right? I really want you to reflect on what we've been talking about, and I hope this information
Right.
is transforming you in the ways that you need. And if you don't agree, that's okay too. I don't invite people to pray for me that assume things about my relationship with God, but I do encourage you to pray for yourself if you feel like this bothered you or offended you in any way. Our intention is to empower and educate
Yeah.
and have more women walking like penguins on the earth. Okay. So
Yes. Come on through
okay, I
now.
need you all to just be
Yeah.
so happy. Okay. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I love y'all very much. Ain't nothing you can do about it. And we will see you all for part 3 in the same spot, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace.
Peace. Good night.